us today. Shashank Pali, RevOps specialist at Evenbound. He has a lot to say. Shashank, thank you for joining. And then Adam Wainwright, Director of Product Management at HubSpot. Adam, thank you for joining us today. And then last, our CPQ brainiac, I like to say, is Jagadish Banholf, CEO and co-founder of MobileForce. And we'll hear through the whole event today from these four.
Awesome.
All right, so we kind of just went through introductions, wanted to keep it short and sweet, get through the thick of it. So we'll be starting off today with sales efficiency from Evenbound, and then we'll go into HubSpot and CPQ and their closing agent and kind of some AI automation stuff with Adam. And then we'll end it with Jagadish's real world examples and automated closing. Wow, automated complex quoting from MobileForce, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of all of it.
Awesome, perfect. Looking forward to all of it. So to get us started, I wanted to kick off our conversation real quick with what is AI currently right now. So as I'm sure you know, you guys have all seen the amazing product updates that came out of Inbound 25. So I wanted to start us off here with a quote that came from Karen Ning, who is the EVP and head of product at HubSpot. During one of her keynotes at the event this past September, she explained AI as it is and how we are in this pivotal moment. So she said that AI transformation is happening whether we're ready or not. The question isn't if AI will change your business, it's whether you'll lead that charge or be left behind. So obviously nobody wants to be left behind. We want you all to stay ahead of the curve. And with that today, hopefully you are able to take away some huge action items for your team that you are able to then implement within your sales process and leverage that sales efficiency. So want to keep that in mind as we head through the rest of this presentation, but just keeping that in mind as we look to stay ahead of the curve. So with that, I would like to welcome and introduce you guys to two of my amazing team members at Evenbound. Today, we are joined by John Heritage, who is the CEO and founder of Evenbound, and then Shashank Pali, who is our revenue operations specialist. So I'm going to stop sharing and allow them to drive the bus and take over and jump into it.
Thanks, Geraldine. Shashank, you're going to share? Here we go.
There we go.
All right. Yep. Thanks for the intro and thanks for getting this all teed up. I'm John Heritage. I'm the CEO of Evenbound. I lead the team here and I create the vision for the company. I'm also heavily involved in strategy and sales and partnerships. And I'm going to let Shashank make an introduction of himself.
Thanks, John. Hi, guys. I'm Shashank. I'm the resident RevOps expert. And I help all of our clients at Evenbound grow their revenue and delight their customers with HubSpot, RevOps, and AI. With that, John, back to you.
Yep, thanks. You can go to that next slide.
Second. Right.
There we go. We're going to talk obviously a lot around CPQ today, which is exciting, especially given all of the inbound updates and what Adam has to say and all the developments that MobileForce has coming and all of that. But there's actually some pre-quote friction leading up to CPQ that requires everybody's attention. And these are kind of hidden bottlenecks in this entire process. You know, the three main ones are really a slow lead qualification. There's nothing worse than wasting time on bad fit prospects. So we want to make an effort to disqualify early and often. And then the second one being there's some unclear deal health on how things are happening inside of this process. Managers can't really support deal health and support deal advancement until it's too late. That's a hidden bottleneck. And the third one being a lot of manual activities. So things like approvals and tasks for creation and actions, all of those things cause delays. And the key takeaway to these three things is that an efficient sales cycle starts well upstream of the CPQ process. You go to the next slide. Fortunately, there are some HubSpot tools to accelerate those common issues. The first one being some predictive lead scoring to fix that visibility and focus on the deals that are most likely to win. The second one being deal health forecasting to spot at-risk deals with AI insights. And then the third one being workflow driven routing to assign tasks and approvals and notifications. The result of those things is fewer delays, higher close rates, and clearer and cleaner deal pipelines. I'm going to turn it over to Shashank, sorry, for some practical applications of these things.
Absolutely. Thanks, John, for this. All right. So today we are going to touch upon these three topics, right? There's the predictive lead scoring, there's the deal health forecasting, and then there's workflow-driven routing. So even before we get into, say, some of the amazing workflows that we can build with HubSpot and some use cases that will accelerate your sales and move your deals quicker to closure, let's quickly just get an overview of what's new on each of these features, right? So within predictive lead scoring, well, all of us know how to build lead scores within HubSpot. And now anybody who's tinkered around with HubSpot knows that there is an AI-enabled lead scoring. And similarly, you can build like a deal health scoring as well. And within these two functionalities, what you can do is what effectively HubSpot does is it goes through, say, your 50 best deals that you closed, your 50 best contacts that closed, and it's going to score them based on activity, what they do, how frequently have they engaged, any activity that you log in there is going to be, HubSpot is going to use machine learning to understand what's a good fit account, what's a good engagement account. It's going to score them right. Now, it's all behind the scenes in terms of how lead scoring and how deal scoring get orchestrated within HubSpot. There's a body of knowledge out there to help you set those things up within HubSpot. What I'm going to focus on today is how are you going to use it? How are you going to use these particular features within HubSpot to help you accelerate sales? So with predictive lead scoring, one of the use cases that I implemented a couple of years ago for one of our clients was dynamic lead routing. So you get these contacts and these leads in different tiers of lead scores, and you can bucket them into high intent, medium intent, low intent. But similarly, while you're doing that, please also bucket your reps into high performance, medium performance, and low performance reps. And then what you can do is you can build workflows where you are sending the highest intent leads to the highest performing reps, and probably you're using the low intent leads either to ramp up your reps or to say do A/B testing with, say, your low performing reps. And as you're doing it, the first thing that you'll see, and this is like the quickest turnaround to say accelerating your sales pipeline, the first thing that you'll see is that, hey, those customers that have high intent are getting exceptional customer experience, buying experience with your high performing reps, and they're moving faster through your pipeline. A couple of other use cases with lead scoring that we've seen marketing teams use and build out is you can use these lead scores, you can segment those leads into different types of lists, and you can have differentiated sequences run for them. You can set them up into audiences, and then you can send them into very different type of campaigns with different copies based on their activity, based on their lead score, based on their intent, etc., etc. And this improves the ROI on your marketing campaigns. This improves your sales cycle time. One thing, or a couple of use cases that we have seen on the deal health, and this is what I say. Any RevOps person with this alt will say absolute data does not make sense. When you're monitoring deal health, do not monitor the absolute deal health score of each deal, but look at how those deal health scores are changing. If any deal has moved above a threshold, or if any deal has moved below a threshold, that's a red flag, and that's something that has to be discussed in your daily morning stand-ups, your sales stand-ups, for you to accelerate and move your pipeline. A couple of other tips and tricks is, hey, you can build workflows where, hey, for any deals that are scoring low but are good fit accounts, you could send them across to deal desk for, say, higher discounting. And another thing that you will see is that you can use deal scores, average deal scores across teams to benchmark across, say, each of the teams and each of the cohorts, and you can use them to accelerate your sales teams and coach them better. One of the workflows that's absolutely like a cornerstone for any CPQ process is the approval matrix that you need to build within your CPQ system. And the way that you can do this within HubSpot is if you and within HubSpot, there is this quotes object, and you go within, say, settings. Within settings, there is objects, and under objects, there's quotes, and under quotes, there's approvals. There's already there in the KV. I just pulled it up for people to see. And within this, you can go to advanced approvals, and you can start building workflows. So I've pre-built a workflow, and we can see here that from an approval perspective, I'm looking at, say, any quote that is generated new and is in state pending approval. A very simple workflow built out over here is I'm looking for the total discount percent. If the total discount percent of, say, the quote is below 10%, and every company, I believe, more often than not, has like a discount matrix where, hey, if it's below a certain percent, the rep can approve. If it's between a certain threshold, then the manager can approve. If it goes beyond a certain threshold, then, hey, you need more leadership approvals. And that's what you see. Below 10%, it's auto approved. Below 20%, it's the manager approval, and above 20% requires finance approval. And then you can have like cascading approvals built in within the system. It's a very simple workflow, but very powerful, which enables reduction in, say, manual activity between teams. You don't have reps chasing their managers, or managers chasing deal desk or finance teams asking for the right approvals, and everything can be orchestrated within systems. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. And with this, I'll pass over to Adam, who I've had the fortunate, I was fortunate enough to meet him at Inbound recently, and he's one of the best minds in CPQ that you can talk to and hear from. So off to you, Adam.
Say more, Shashank. Say more, please. No, good to see everybody. It was a pleasure both meeting up with you and John at Inbound. Look, you made my job a little bit easy because you sort of teed something up that certainly it's a good segue. So it's great to see everybody on this call. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'm going to flip on a couple of slides here. Let's see if I can actually pull this off in record time. Can you guys see my screen okay? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So what I'd like to do is just quickly, I'm going to set the foundation just to really help everybody here understand really the big why behind the why. For us at HubSpot, and thank you for teeing this off, Geraldine, AI is this sort of big super headline, but I think what we're doing in Commerce Hub is really enabling our customers to see the further investments that we're making in terms of bringing the unified, fast and easy story to the forefront. And so for us, the CPQ build, simply put, is a domino that is really going to enable our customers to fulfill the downstream revenue management process. And so ultimately our sort of the easy sort of why behind the why is to say that what we wanted to build was a really fast and easy quoting technology that leveraged some advanced capabilities and features so that we could take on some complexity on behalf of our customers, but really in service of just helping sellers close fast. For what it's worth, I've spent the last decade and a half building sales teams, driving go-to-market motions. I've been a part of a few exits, and I've seen what it takes to go from a little bit of revenue, figuring out product market fit, and then actually scaling it to gangbusters and doing some pretty remarkable things. And in every instance, the two things that jammed up my teams for universally was the ability to effectively forecast correctly and build quotes. And so because quotes has such an emotional there's such an emotion to it when it comes to sales, this was something that I wanted to tackle when I actually joined my previous company, Cashflow, before our acquisition. And so ultimately, helping sellers close fast was really paramount to the build process. And then finally, the real benefit is if your quote produces data, entitlements data, start dates, end dates, amounts, quantities, discounts, if you produce all this data, shouldn't we then be good citizens and give our downstream brothers and sisters a little bit of help in terms of helping them manage the actual revenue life cycle? This is really at the core of our why statement. And so I hope to show you a couple of things here, but we're going to focus primarily on CPQ. So anyway, you can see at the bottom there, simply revenue teams will use the HubSpot CPQ system to effectively close fast, but also get paid. For many of our customers on this call right now, you know that we're coming into an ecosystem in Commerce Hub that has a payments business. And so our job was to build off on top of that so that we can own more of a revenue story. And this is how we fit in, right? So you've got the Sales Hub that is meant to go out and help your sellers accelerate deal cycles, grab all kinds of great signal, automate a ton of workflows, really give a leg up to the sales team. But the Service Hub is doing something similar in terms of managing customer relationship. We feel that with this launch of CPQ, Commerce Hub gets to become positioned as the engine that drives the revenue processes. And so perhaps you can think of it as sales is going to manage their net new quotes out of Commerce Hub, and service might manage the renewals out of Commerce Hub. Example use cases, but we want to be the tie that binds your customer-facing workflows in a way now that your downstream or back office team has the right data on demand, real time. So this all connects back to the Commerce Hub, and of course CPQ becomes the first leg of this journey. Now, how does AI play in? Well, we were really pleased to announce at this launch, the core focus, of course, as everybody here knows, AI, the core focus for HubSpot is AI. And so our strategy is to really maintain and take that momentum and put it to good use in the context of revenue management, CPQ being a part. So in this launch, there are three kind of main forays into AI that we are launching. The first one, simply put, we're going to grab all this unstructured data that ideally is making its way back at the deal level, and we're going to put that to use in the quoting context. If a seller wants to generate a cover letter, generate an ROI statement, generate an executive summary, these are things they can just simply do using what's called the Breeze Assistant inside of the quote itself. The smart line item management. So again, sellers can literally just have a conversation. Hey, I want to have so many units. I want to have these line items. I want to have this much discount. Hey, give me that quote at rack rate. Give me another version at 30%. And in this way, we are now going to make it a little bit more conversational for sellers to simply interact with the quoting process. And then finally, the closing agent, which is something I'd love to make sure we talk about today, is a fairly significant foray for us to actually bring the agent into the mix. That is, send the quote out to the customer, and then the customer can engage with a system that might ask those questions that otherwise would have been spent when the seller had to go put together a fire drill Friday meeting to just sort of scratch the itch of the CFO, who's my signer, but wasn't really involved in the evaluation process and isn't aware of the details of the warranty process. We can cover all of that with a teachable contextual agent model that lives right inside of the digital quote. I think what we can do now is I'm even going to show you guys a couple of things here. Let me see if I can just change the screen, but I'm going to keep it real simple and real tight. I know Jagadish is going to show a few things as well. So I'm just going to quickly pull up the, how do I bring out the window? Here we are. Of course, it's the one that actually has all of us looking at me. So I'm going to pivot away. Here we go. Okay. So quick check on that. Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yep, you're good. You're good.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly do a super simple harbor tour for everybody on this call. When you are in HubSpot, the first thing that you obviously are going to navigate is your SkyNav, and you can come over here to Commerce. Indeed, the quotes now live in the Commerce Hub, and you can see quotes. And so when we come here, a couple of things that are worth really calling out that are really fast. First, I've got my index page. Okay, we get it. There's a simple index page, but there are a couple of other tabs. I've also got something called Analyze and something called Templates. The first foray, the first thing that we really built here was the ability to add templates. I'm just going to come over here because I've got it sort of laid out for me. We can now simply create a ton of templates that will enable our sellers, when they actually go produce the quote, to grab the right template on demand for the sake of speed. And in this case, remember, time kills deals. And so what we really want to do is prevent sellers from having to deal with what I call is the cold start problem by grabbing an actual a template and starting from scratch. So we can just simply launch, the seller can effectively have maybe some pre-enrolled products, right? Maybe there's a couple elements. This is not a good example. It's fairly scant, but in a template setting, we can effectively configure this template to do anything that we want it to do, perhaps by geo, by region, by segment, whatever that may be. to then give the sellers that extra step and kind of get ahead of that cold start. And then you can even see, for example, I can do things like in my terms and conditions, I can just simply go ahead and drop in like my special terms and conditions that might have already been saved in snippets. So we're just going to make it really easy to templatize this so that when sellers are ready to build, all they have to do is click on the template right from the deal when they launch the deal. I've come back here and I'm going to touch on just two more quick things here. There's another component of what we launched, which is how do we give sellers line of sight on the deals after they've sent them? So one thing that we really love is giving our sellers the ability to actually see where these deals are after they've sent them. So in this case, you can see here, I've got all my quotes flowing. I'm going to close this, kind of floating out there. And you can see as the customer is engaging with them, we're tracking that engagement activity and we're effectively elevating the sort of quote to a higher activity status, which is a good signal for the seller if the deal hasn't come in yet to maybe build or run a play that might nudge the buyer over the edge, especially if we're on a timeline. Discounts have deadlines. How do we give our sellers line of sight where those discounts and where those quotes are? We're going to give them a whole workspace they can actually operate their business out of. And they can even see things like, okay, who's activating it? What are they looking at, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, in terms of actually, Shashank already mentioned, we've also launched an approvals workflow. So yes, you now can build approvals in the quoting process. And then I'm going to do one thing. This is actually really sweet. So I'm going to pivot back now. I'm going to quote, and just for time's sake, I'm just going to do something really, really simple. First of all, you can see I've got this cover letter. Indeed, we can use AI to draft the cover letter. Very, very simple. But I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to show you all I now have to do in my quote is if I wanted to, let's do this. I'm going to actually come over here and I'm just going to tell this thing, let's just waive discount the 24/7 dedicated engineer 100%. And what's going to happen now is the AI is going to quickly scan through the quote and it's just going to identify the line item and it's just going to apply a 100% discount. But I show it because what's important is as soon as it applies that 100% discount, which is just done, now what we've done is we've rendered off that approval requirement. In this case, looks like my approval is actually not turned on right now. So there's a meta moment for me for a Musk moment, but either way, that should trigger off a approval requirement that says this quote now needs to go back for approvals so that I can't just send it to the customer because in this case, the seller has broken a 100% approval requirement. And then the last thing that I want to show, just for the sake of time, I'm going to jump over here now. When we render off the quote and we send it and share it with our customer, I'll use this one, they're going to see something not dissimilar to this as a quote. And so in this case, I'm now the buyer. In this case, Olivia is my sales rep. I can see that I've got my cover letter. I've got my quote here. I can come down. I can see these details. If I sign it, I can sign it. But maybe before I do, I want to ask the chat agent and the closing agent some questions. And so I can just simply say, tell me about the warranty. And what's going to happen is it's actually going to query a contextual layer that will identify what we've actually trained this thing on. So it can be knowledge-based articles, it can be white papers, it can be a ton of different assets, which will then effectively call back a response based on whatever I'm asking for. So you can see I've got some questions here. I've got a hardware warranty. I've got a software warranty. That's all been educated through knowledge sources here in the closing agent. And so forgive me, I'm jumping around here, but if I come back into Commerce Hub, I have closing agent here, and you can see this is how I can train this knowledge set. And I can then give it a ton of assets so that now it's educated on what this quote potentially would be. And finally, in the event, when I say, hey, give me 100% discount, this is my last move here. What this is now going to do is it's actually going to activate. It's going to say, hey, I can't actually change the quote, but I can certainly grab somebody that can. And so now I've sent it off, and now we're going to go back and ping the seller. Here we are, right? Now this is me, hey, give me that discount. And then the seller has been engaged. So in this case, Adam is my buyer. And then Flora, my little chat closing agent's coming back and saying, hey, this person needs you. And so now as a result, as the sales reps, I can actually engage with my buyer directly from the actual quote. And so we're going to use AI to help minimize a lot of the superfluous parts of the evaluation, but also maintain the guardrails necessary so that sellers have more control over the deal cycles. And I'm going to finish by just quickly going over to the last slide, which will be, there you are, Hug. This one. When preparing for a rollout, it's really good to know you just want to make sure you have a clean product library with good filtered, good views. Build out the approval. Have a sense of your approval workflows. If you have tiers and thresholds, if you've got discount guardrails, make sure you have that down on paper. But most importantly, sales playbooks are really effective to help sellers understand how they can quote. And then our quote engine will make it fast and easy to do so. And then finally, organize your knowledge base so that you can feed the closing agent with the appropriate information so that your sellers have something to engage with should they have any questions at the time of signing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw it now back over to Jagadish.
Was fantastic. All right, so let's pick it up from where we left. So Mobileforce, as a CPQ partner of HubSpot, is really focused on kind of picking up where HubSpot CPQ leaves, right? So we are focused on more of the complex use cases. We work a lot across industries, not just technology, but manufacturing, distribution, service-oriented industries. And as you look at some of these B2B environments, there's a lot of complexity we hear every day talking to customers. And I'm going to stress a little bit more on the C part of the CPQ, right? The configurations is one area where we hear a lot of pain because these industries, they typically have fairly complex set of SKUs. They not only just sell tangible products like hardware, but they also sell software nowadays. Everybody is in subscription economy, as you know, and so people sell and tailor that with complex. For example, even equipment makers now sell a lot of maintenance contracts and subscription software that's sort of tied to certain equipment. There's obviously services associated with that. And one of the common challenges that we hear is the ability to be able to very easily quote all of those, a mixture of all of those products and services on a single proposal. And then also being able to ensure that there's not a lot of back and forth in terms of making sure that quotes are accurate, they are fulfillable, and they are compliant. Right. So those are the three key things that most teams look at, and they talk about a lot of pain where they have to go back and forth. Typically, that comes from configurations that may have a lot of dependencies and codependencies that are not accurately captured during the quoting time, and people inadvertently misconfigure quotes just because they don't know what works with what, especially as part of new rep training. This is one of the things that people have spent a lot of time on, and making sure that they get all of that tribal knowledge in terms of dependencies and all of those things somehow put in the system. The other one where we see a lot of challenges is around manual processes involved around getting data from different systems. A lot of times, information that you need as part of quoting doesn't always live in one system. Yes, your product catalog can live in CPQ. Yes, your customer information can sit in CRM. That's your system of record. But sometimes, there are other things such as inventory, such as usage. This information typically sits in other third-party applications, could even be homegrown applications for that matter. And some of that pieces of information is crucial in the quoting process. So, if you are like an equipment seller, you want accurate, up-to-date data on inventory. You don't want to sell something that's not in stock or not sourced out of the right warehouse. If you are in the software business, if you are in usage-based pricing, you kind of want to know what the customers are averaging in terms of usage over the last 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. As you go into renewals, you want to make sure you price it right. So some of these things require integration. So that's one of the areas where we see a lot of swivel chairing that goes on, where people have to copy information from one system and put that into the CPQ system, and you lose a lot of time. So a lot of this is around administration. So we spend a lot of time in MobileForce trying to put the power in the hands of the practitioners, which is your RevOps, SalesOps people. How do we make those teams self-sufficient and provide them the set of tools and automation so that they could do their ongoing administration as well very quickly, not only to just help the sales teams and really kind of configure the solutions and support the solutions that they have so that their sellers find it really easy to kind of breeze through that whole process. So moving forward, we've worked with a number of customers, as I said, across different industries. And the good news is, it doesn't have to be slow. And if you're very methodical about this and you put the right processes in place, this is always a combination of process and technology, folks. It's not just about technology. I think that's something that's very important that I've learned over the years working with many RevOps teams. It's not just it's a collaborative effort, and I think where there's a lot of collaboration, I think combination of good technology and process can really yield some stellar results. In case of some of the manufacturers that we work with, many of them have now templatized some standard configurations and made them standardized templates in itself. So take every single nuanced code that you get out, and if it happens more often than not, turn that into a template. Helps a lot. So you're not ever starting from zero. You're always starting from 75 or 80% complete code, draft codes that can speed up that whole process. It also helps in AI. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that, because the more data, the more bundles and the more stuff you have actually helps you in some of those things as well. So one of the areas where we always advise is some key habits and best practices, right? Some of my colleagues here have already talked a lot about approval, so I'm going to skip that part. But standardized terms and templates. We see a whole lot of customers where they have over the years created lots and lots of different kinds of Word or Excel or other kinds of templates that they've kind of created for every combination of different kind of quotes, sometimes even customer specific outputs. Fortunately, we have the technology to be able to bring that all under control, where you can actually have a document generation system that's extremely flexible, where it can take information from CRM, CPQ, and any third-party system and dynamically include or exclude different components within your terms and conditions, within your actual code document, within your SOW or an RFP response, whatever that you are trying to generate, where you don't have to manually manage 25 different revisions of those. It can all be dynamic. So take advantage of that. The other piece that I also want to highlight is this point 3, which is building bundles, which goes a long way in building repeatable error-free codes, which means a lot of times you have configurable products. You don't have products that just you sell standalone. Your products that need to have certain attributes configured, such as you're selling a computer, you can't just sell it standalone. You want to configure processor speed or size of memory or hard disk size, and those have obviously impact on your pricing. So configurable properties, defining them and creating them as sort of most commonly used bundles will really go a long way in speeding things up. And those are some of the simple best practices that we've seen RevOps teams start with. You could build on top of it. There are more advanced and complicated things you could do. But I think at the basic level, getting your sequential and parallel approvals in place, standardizing your terms into standard templates with dynamic components, and getting your product bundles in place with automatic price book detection and automatic pricing scheme set up. Those are 3 areas where you could really significantly speed up coding. So, building on top of that, right? Once you have that foundation, that's when you can start to leverage AI, right? It all everything happens in the data. The more data you collect, the more the system can learn. The more templates you have, the more we can automate and start to use some of the natural language processing capabilities available. So two areas where we are focused on. One is helping the rep, and the second is helping the admin, right? Helping the rep, certainly, Adam showed a lot about, Breeze and what it can do. We are trying to build on top of that in the complex situations where if somebody has a complex industry specific or customer specific configuration, how do you now enable an admin team, a RevOps team, to sort of build their own prompts? So can you customize the prompt? So we are focused on a lot on prompt builders, where you can actually build a prompt. So for example, we've got a healthcare services company, and they have a very specific set of healthcare studies that they have. Lots of different variables there, lots of different attributes. They've actually turned that into a standard prompt, which is specific to their business. So their sellers can talk their lingo to the natural language processor and the assistant. Instead of just talking about doing a quote, it can actually specifically say, do A, B, and C type of study. And the system is able to understand it and turn that into a very specific quote. Again, there, with all the automation, we can bring it down already to a matter of 5 or 6 or 7 clicks from 30 or 40 clicks. But we could actually bring it all the way down to 1 click, where you're able to now talk to a co-pilot and it can help you with that end-to-end process. The other area where we are focused on a lot is helping the RevOps agent, being a co-pilot for an agent. This is where they can actually put together very quick rules. They might have some ideas in terms of how they want to bundle things or how they want to constrain things. So you could, as an administrator, you could say if you sell product A, B, and C, then you cannot sell D, E, and F because they're incompatible. Or whenever you sell a product X, you must sell product Y because that's a dependency. You could quite easily tell the agent, go ahead and configure some rules for me to enforce those constraints, and the system will then go ahead and do that. Those are areas where you could save significant amount of time and go from sort of ideation to actually operationalizing some of those things and helping your sellers go out and sell. So those are some of the areas we are focused on from AI. Stay tuned for that. We are rolling that out, and we would love to obviously engage with any of you folks who are more interested in that in a more deeper dive discussion. Wrapping up, adding to the sort of the quick wins that Adam laid out there, I'm focusing a little bit more on the things that I've learned in more of the complex scenarios. One area where I think it has really helped is auditing the bottlenecks, just understanding your own sales process today, because what you want is a solution that molds itself very well to your workflow, not the other way around, right? You don't want to force your sellers to just learn some new tech stack, because they will rebel and you're not going to have a good adoption, right? And so the best way to go about doing it is truly understanding what their current workflow is, even if they're doing something with Microsoft Excel today, right? Just understanding that, so that when you put a new tech stack together, you try to mimic and emulate that as much as possible. Because every one of us, if we're used to something for several years, we're not going to change it overnight. We want, even if it's a new tech stack, as long as it speaks the same language, it helps us through the same workflow, the adoption is going to be higher. So audit the bottlenecks, audit your workflows, and get that in place. That's one thing that I always encourage customers to do. Other is, we talked a lot about this, package bundles. If there are repeatable workflows, try to capture that. That will also help in AI, building those prompts. Third is approvals. This is always something that, enough cannot be said about this. People, it always trips people up. It's not just in discounts, by the way. We also see a lot of it in contracts, in manufacturing and other situations. Sometimes approvals need to go literally all the way down to factory floor, because you have made to order kind of scenarios where people need to approve whether something can actually be built. And in those scenarios, you want to make sure that those approval rules, whether it's sequential or parallel, all happen very nicely, especially with backup approvers in place, so that you have some nice processes to lay out there and automate. And last but not the least, pick up one of these workflows, whatever you have, just pick one per quarter and roll it out, and you'll see some pretty dramatic gains. And you can actually, we have the systems between HubSpot and Mobileforce and the expertise that Evenbound can bring here. You've got everything you need to assist you. So talk to us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Great conversations. Appreciate all of you guys jumping in and the conversations and insights that you brought today. So with that, we're going to jump into some questions and answers. And I want to start off with a few that we have seen come across in the chat, but I want to read them out loud so we ensure everybody knows the answer here. So we had one from Grant say, I believe Mobileforce at one point had their own integrated CPQ software add-on in HubSpot. Has that been integrated into HubSpot's product? Nick answered and said that Mobileforce's CPQ is still its own product, not absorbed into HubSpot's native CPQ. It's a certified HubSpot app that runs directly inside the deal views and really shines when it comes to handling configuration and complex quoting. Anything else anybody wants to add there on the Mobileforce side of things, Adam, HubSpot side of things, anything like that?
I would just add that, Jagadish's team has been at this a lot longer than HubSpot has. And when it comes to managing real configurable complexity, you're going to just simply get a lot longer yardstick. Our use cases, we're deliberately tackling a simpler subset of use cases at the onset. And so, yes, that the size of the C, as Jagadish had mentioned, is really where you want to start determining just exactly where you're going to want to look. And certainly a lot of folks come to us and we point them back to Mobileforce a lot when we're talking about services quoting, manufacturing, engineer to order, larger scale complexity needs, etc.
For sure. Awesome. A quick follow-up to that, Grant, I see that you jumped back in the chat. So you said, I took a look at Mobileforce's CPQ UI a while ago. Has there been any updates or improvements? Jagadish, I don't know if you want to quick jump into the answer that you just put.
Just to add to that, yes, there's been several improvements, a lot of HubSpot related styling and closer alignment with HubSpot's objects. We support custom objects and custom fields, real-time integration into HubSpot's specific data model extensions. So any information you want to pull from any object in any field and use that in your quoting logic, you can use that. A lot easier to build those complex expressions without knowing anything about programming, all no code. So that's one area we've spent a lot of time in simplifying from admin view perspective. To what I said earlier, there's been a lot of focus in enabling RevOps, SalesOps agents to be able to self-service and be able to manage things themselves. So there's a lot of work there. Come and take a look at that. And certainly on the AI agent as well, both on the seller view and the admin view, we are adding additional levels of productivity boost there.
For sure. Awesome. I want to jump over to our Q&A section. So we just had one come through that says, how can CPQ and AI help on marketing campaigns? If anyone wants to come off mute and answer that one.
I'll just simply add, and maybe John has a point of view on this. We have a ton of data living in marketing and a ton of data what customers are buying. In the world where we can marry those two signals, now we've got a far better picture of our revenue strategy. And that's the real key here. How do we unlock the strategy so we can better plan, prepare, grow, and scale without all that friction that we're so used to dealing with some of these systems? John, what do you think?
Bingo. I mean, it's all tying it back to the original strategy and what we're doing from a marketing side and what does that look like long term, right? So when something does get to the point that we are developing a quote for it, it's turning commercial. Where did that originate? How do we reinvest in the origins of how that deal came to be? Because we want more of those, right? I mean, that's really what we're trying to do.
One other thing I could add there is, with all the data from the CPQ all the way down to the product level, line item level, you could harness it really well because you take that back into the CRM. We actually have specific customers who are taking that information and asking questions, insightful questions like, okay, I have a particular subsegment in the industry and I've got these products and these are the products that are selling the most. This is the average ticket price there, and look at, the 10% that are not there. And asking the question, well, how can we upsell and cross-sell them? And why are they not buying these products? I mean, these are meaningful questions to ask. And if you don't have that level of data from CPQ, you can't ask and act on it. And that's where I think this comes full circle.
Yeah, I love that. I like to call that white space analysis, right? Show me where I can improve my net retention strategy, and I can identify cross-sell, expansion, upsell moves in my team. CFOs have been asking for this for as long as I can remember, and it's traditionally been very hard to do.
We could probably do a whole session just on that question.
Yeah.
And all the various ideas. We'll take that into consideration for our next one.
For sure. Awesome. Well, thank you for the input from all of you on that one. A question maybe more so, we've been hearing a lot within the sales process, and we have quite a few questions that we've heard come up within those conversations. So it might be helpful if we just answer a few here. So Adam, this one more specifically for you on the HubSpot side of things. So what would you say, why did HubSpot decide to build CPQ natively? And then how does it tie into the broader Sales Hub and AI roadmap? So I know you've touched on this briefly, but maybe a specific answer to that question.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I suppose one could perhaps like debate the philosophy between it living as like a sales function in a sales hub versus some other function in some other hub. I think the short answer would be there was a lot of investment made in this commerce hub, this payments business, this billing and invoicing, and how can we start to assemble some capabilities that would better serve some of the downstream or cross-functional partners in the business, but in a world where we can accomplish kind of what that last two questions were about, map that data back to my marketing. So I have a full life cycle picture.
Yeah.
And then sort of through the sort of navigating and chopping and attacking and solving for these problems, this sort of light bulb went off. Well, we really should be thinking about CPQ as the first domino to fall in a revenue life cycle. And so if we kind of take that philosophical approach, then all of a sudden you can start to build out on top of what yesterday was called the Commerce Hub. So the short answer is there have been massive internal leanings towards making more investments into billing and invoicing, and sort of just the natural progression to that was to go find a solution, in this case, the vendor that I'd come from, that kind of did both under one roof. And so we think it was sort of a have your cake and eat it too opportunity that HubSpot seized.
For sure, from start to finish. Awesome. Okay, one, maybe Shashank on the RevOps side of things, specifically for you. So how can RevOps leaders balance this AI-driven insights with the rep adoption in terms of the buy-in process of it all?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Okay. So how can RevOps leaders balance AI-driven insights with rep adoption and the buy-in?
Rep adoption and the buy-in. Can you elaborate on the buy-in piece?
So when it comes to the adoption of reps buying in on these new potential AI insights.
Right.
Yep.
At this point of, I'm drawing a blank. Honestly, I'm drawing a blank on this.
No, that's okay. I think this is something that's come up in sales conversations quite a bit. And we have seen it come up on the HubSpot side of things. And I know John and I have talked a little bit about this too, when it comes to reps being ready to buy in on these new tools and the new AI insights that have come from these recent product updates that we've seen. And as I said before, AI is ever changing and all that. So how do we ensure that reps are ready for this and moving forward with it, and the buy-in is there with these new tools and advancements that we're seeing? Awesome. Okay. Perfect. Okay. And then more on the mobile force side of things. I know Nick and I have kind of gone back and forth on this too. But off the top of your guys' head right now, what would you say is one quick win that you'd recommend for a team with quoting delays?
Oh, that's easy. I think if you think about the whole discussion about approvals and product rationalization, I mean, almost in every one of the customers that we've worked with, we've really simplified just a SKU, the product catalog makeup, and speeding people through, reps through exactly what they need to do with just some simple guardrails and automated rules. I think that's easy, because a lot of the times customers already know what they are, because they've been quoting. Even if they're manually quoting, they know what goes with what and whatnot. If you just provide them a system to just sort of systematize it and put that in place and automate it, they'll be able to see that quick win. We've seen almost 80% acceleration. Quotes that used to take like an hour, now it's like 5, 6, 7 minutes. So we've seen significant acceleration just by doing those two, right? Putting the products and the rules around configurations and choosing the right price books based on that. That is usually an easy win, because they're probably already doing it in spreadsheets. Just put that in the system.
Yeah, from spreadsheets into where it needs to be. So
exactly.
Awesome. Okay, just gonna take a look at our chat and Q&A section, see if there's any more that have come through. Nick, if you could head to the next slide for me. Awesome. Okay, well, here are direct links for our direct contact information. So would love to continue the conversation, whether that's via LinkedIn or reaching out to one of us directly. Feel free to reach out to me on the Evenbound side of things. HubSpot side of things, you can go through sales. Adam said directly to mention him in this presentation, and they should be able to help you from there. And then marketing, Nick on the mobile force side of things can answer any of your questions on that front. But it was great talking with all of you guys, and thank you so much for joining us today. You all will also receive a survey via HubSpot events after this. So any and all feedback is welcome, but we appreciate you guys carving the time out of your afternoon to join us. So till next time. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.